This is the Matt Mosley Show.
It is Matt Mosley Show, E-Radio Network. And joining us now from a Lowe's in Parker County, I believe, somewhere outside of Lowe's, is the legendary Randy Galloway. He and I worked together for Galloway and Company. I was part of the company once upon a time, and we had about a 10-year run on together. And, of course, Randy had a much longer run than that on radio, and then also the Dallas Morning News and the Fort Worth Star-Telegram as well, where he was a columnist at both of those places. Randy, does when you saw that Luca, all that happening over there, are those the moments you still kind of want to be on the show or have a column to write? Do the old juices get flowing when there's a crazy wild night at the old barn like that one last night?
You know, you can't. I've never regretted retiring. Heck, I was a sports writer 50 years and threw around opinions and opinions and opinions, and then on the radio 29 years in Dallas, all in Dallas-Fort Worth, and I loved it, but I've never regretted retiring. It was time to go. I wanted to go. Didn't have to. Both newspaper and radio were asking. So, Matt, there's been very few moments, but there are those moments, and last night was good question, because last night was certainly one of those moments. I think last night showed that, a lot of people may not believe it, and I know you believe it, and I believe it, but I think there are basketball gods out there that are calling the shots in certain situations. And I think last night the basketball gods were calling the shots. And I think for all of us, it couldn't have gone any better. It was just absolutely perfect based on the stupidity and the arrogance of people like the general manager and the doofus owner.
Patrick Dumont does qualify. He does have doofus stature,
look
and
at look at him. D, that's D for doofus. Ooh, man.
And hey, we should all be so fortunate to marry into a fortune, right? To marry, to become an instant billionaire. I think that's...
Oh, yeah. I'm still mad at my wife of 60 years because they lived in a brick house. I thought they had a lot of money. Didn't have a damn dime, Mosley. So, now we've made it 60 years. So.
Yeah, well... It's a great love story, and Jill Janine, I said hi. It is, we've had, we've seen a lot of things, and I was even talking earlier today on the show about, like, you and I were on together when they won the championship in 2011, and we were doing a show up at, like, Buffalo Wild Wings. We flew back from Miami where they closed it out. And it was a triumphant time. Of course, we didn't get any sleep, and we fly back from Miami, and we're doing a show in front of a packed audience as usual, Randy. And then I remember Rick Carlisle flying back with the Mavs, obviously after partying all night, and then coming straight to be with us in person. I mean, it's almost sometimes
Absolutely.
I go, did all that happen? Did all that really happen? We had a lot of fun times for sure. Last night, though, Randy, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite that sad in sports. Now, nobody died. That's always the saddest when we lose somebody, that kind of thing. But to watch that young man, 26 years old, and to watch the emotion pouring out of him while they played that video, Randy, I got to tell you, I was just kind of like stunned because, it makes you angry again. It made you sad, and it made you know that guy who makes all these millions but he cared, and he wanted to be here. And again, I think it just brought back lots of emotions, anger, whatever. But, Randy, I don't know if we've ever seen anyone like any scene quite like that. That was really something to witness that.
And what continues to get me, and last night I thought was a prime example, with the quotes before the game, Luka's quotes, the quotes after the game. Matt, he makes he does not hide it at all. He just says, I'm still not over it, but it's getting better. And I mean, his love for the organization, love for for North Texas, for everything involved was totally genuine. And it's funny because those arrogant Laker fans, and I think even people in the Laker organization are listening to those quotes, and they got to be going, "Hey, you're a Laker now. You ought to be celebrating. You ought to be happy. You are a Laker." And he doesn't give a damn. He says no. I'm not over it yet. I'm not over the trade. And that's got to kill Nico and the Doofus owner.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be, God, he could at least say, boy, I'm glad to be in L.A. I know he said it, but he doesn't say it like, I'm just glad the trade happened, and boy, I'm a Laker now.
Yeah. With
all their history. And he's never said that. And he said, proud to be with the Lakers, this and that. But it's always after he says, I'm not over this trade yet.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, by the emotion of the moment, one of the great moments, it's true. He's not over it when you see the emotion and everything that was happening. But, man, as old as I am and growing up here, I remember every moment when I was in high school when the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas Texans came on the scene in 1960. So I followed it, being an avid sports fan. I followed it forever since 1960. That's over 60 years worth.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't ever. There's not many scenes like that. In fact, I can't even think of one offhand where you had that kind of scene and that kind of return ever in our sports history.
Well, as a young columnist, Randy Galloway on the Matt Mosley show on the E-Radio network, you remember when the Mavs finally started to turn the corner, and we all remember Moody Madness and all that, but there was almost from day one lots of Lakers hate from Mavs land, and when they almost broke through and won that playoff series, we all remember with Derek Harper and all. And so, again, you and I and a lot of our listeners knowing that context, it made it even crazier last night with them cheering everything Luka did. Basically, it sounded like they were cheering for the Lakers. And Mike Breen at some point goes, well, there are a lot of Lakers fans here. And I wanted to be like, how would you know that? How in the world do you know that there are Lakers fans at this game?
Yeah.
Because they were going crazy for Luka.
The whole deal. And that was one time, by the way, anytime the Lakers come to town, there are a lot of Laker fans there. I mean, you hear it. We've seen it over the years. But your point is well taken. Last night, you couldn't tell. You couldn't tell because everybody was a Luka fan, and so they were cheering now. Some people were cheering for Luka, but actually hoped the Mavericks win. I don't think there's any doubt. But I think a lot of fans didn't give a dang about whether the Mavericks won or not. They just wanted Luka to just stuff it up, the doofus owner and the idiot general manager. And he did that.
I thought of one of your old things. I think it was stuff it or stick it up your yin yang or something like that. I thought
he did yin yang them. I'll put it that way.
I thought that was a Gallowayism. Okay, now we are on in boy. I mean, it's all over the place. You know, some of the places you like to drive through and you've hung out over the years. Big in Arkansas, Hot Springs, all the surrounding areas, Texarkana, Shreveport, Bossier. I mean, these are places that the Galloway family has visited over the years. But Oak Lawn, where in our station in Hot Springs, is literally, Randy, right across the street from Oak Lawn. I mean, it's just right there on top of it. I would imagine you have spent some time at Oak Lawn over the years, and perhaps even taken a racehorse or two from your stable, from Winfrey Racing over there to Oak Lawn.
Matt, Oak Lawn. Oh God, I can go back to 1959 or 60. About 5 of us, we were juniors at Grand Prairie High. Matt, in those days, you drove to downtown Dallas, and they had a train. Must have had 10 cars on it, 12 cars. And they had a train that took you from Dallas straight up to Oak Lawn Park, and the train parked right beside the track. You got out, spent the day at the racing, and then you got on the train and went home. It was the greatest deal in the world. I'm in high school with that happening. And one story on that, we're on the train, and we had smuggled a little, we were young, but somebody, Matt, of course it wasn't me, had some illegal booze on there. And among our group, and boy, you hate to see that. I did, but, it happened. But we look up, and in our same car, about 7, 8 seats up, we look up, and there were 4 teachers, women teachers from Grand Prairie High, who knew us all. They were going to the races. Well, what they were doing, they had their own booze. And then we look at them, they look at us, and both of us are going, oh, God. And they're going, we're here to have a good time. We got stupid students, outlaw students on this train with us. And we're looking, oh, gosh, we're here to have a good time. And we got our teachers on the train. Anyway, and I was lucky over 20 years to own thoroughbreds. We ran at Oak Lawn Park. I've always said this about Oak Lawn. I'll still say it today. That is the greatest wonder of thoroughbred race. Just a wonder of thoroughbred racing that nothing in the track in the world of racing is like it. Has no turf. It's an older track. Even the dirt part of it is different. A little shorter here, shorter there. But, I mean, to see the people and the handle and everything, and of course, horse racing is about the handle. How much money are people betting on your product, and how it is supported by the people of Arkansas still. Once Texas got racing, it's not on the scale of Oak Lawn, but people thought, it'll kind of back off. Well, it hadn't at all. And the support it gets in the state of Arkansas, I've never seen anything like it. We had a horse running up there, a horse called Gold Element. We were running at about a $40,000 claiming race. This had to be 15 years ago. And we're on the excuse me, here in the Lowe's parking lot. Some lady wanted me to help her load some concrete sacks. I told her anything could happen in a Lowe's parking lot. But anyway, he was running up there. A pretty good purse and a $40,000 claim. It wasn't like it is today, but it's probably about a $30,000 purse. We win the race, paid about $10, went off 4-1, and old Gold Element wins that race. My phone rings about 5 minutes. I'm watching the race. I'm not up there, and my phone rings, but I'm watching it at Lone Star Park, and it's Larry Lacewell. And I hear, and he just starts cussing me. And I'm going, and he said, Switzer's here too. And I hear Switzer screaming. He's cussing me. And there were a couple other coaches with him, old Arkansas or Oklahoma coaches. I can't remember who it was. And Lacewell had seen, that's Galloway's horse. That's we called it Wimp Free Racing Stable. And he said, that's Wimp Free, that's Galloway. And he didn't even tell us it. So they cussed me, and they were going, the late great Lacewell went, if you ever have a horse running up here again, you better call us. And I went, well, we will, but I can't guarantee it's going to win. This one did. But just a story from Oaklawn, and love old Oaklawn. A lot of good times up there.
Man, you're right. Larry Lacewell, who, for people that haven't followed his career, was a coordinator for Switzer in Oklahoma, then became the head of scouting, was a head coach at Arkansas State, then was the head of scouting for the Cowboys, and really was Jerry's best friend. Jerry Jones' best friend and confidant in all of that. But, yeah, I'm surprised Jerry wasn't hanging out with them, but if it was maybe Barry, maybe they were trying to keep them apart. But that was what a gang that was. Well, I tell you, now here's the only problem, Randy. This is going to happen. This always happens to me. People are going to hear this, and, they're going to want you on with me probably at least about 3 times a week. And then at some point, somebody will, have a talk with me about how the tide rolls in with Galloway. And as one executive once told me when I was in there asking for money, and he basically looked out there he looked out over by whatever that was, probably, a 183, and he looked out there at those cars, and he basically said, well, about any one of those people in those cars could come in here and do a show with Randy.
By the way, I love that. That was, well, he was kind of full of it, but
yeah.
God bless him.
Golly. I went out there to tail between my legs, of course, did not get what I was asking for. I think a lot of times you just negotiated for me, and I'd say, well, Randy, what did I get? What did I end up getting? And you just tell me, well, they gave you this. But, oh, man. Well, this was fun, and by the way, we don't want to get into this right now, but that I thought of you because somebody's written a new biography on Don Drysdale. The Dodgers great, and I know you and Don had become good friends at some point, and so next time you come on, I may need a Drysdale story or two, but that is I
love my man Don. Quick story,
yeah.
In hanging out with Don liked to have a cocktail after ball games. I did too. We did a lot of hanging out. For 1 year, he was the first Ranger announcer, radio announcer, 1972. But one night in a hotel somewhere, after a ball game, we were talking about, the worst thing in the world would be to die in a hotel room. And you're there alone and nobody knows. You got nobody to go to, but you die. And I went, God, that'd be horrible, Don. And Mosley, about 20 years later, he did that in a hotel in Milwaukee, the Pfister Hotel in Milwaukee. Same thing happened. Kind of a sad, not kind of, hell of a sad ending for the great Don Drysdale, but a hell of a guy, great guy. We'll do that, though.
Yeah. The time you told me about him and that y'all used to hang out together, I just was like, I was thinking, how in the world you and I just would have loved to have sat there. I wouldn't have said a word and just eavesdrop on you and Drysdale. And although I'd have a hard time not saying a word. That does not really fit. Yeah. That doesn't fit me.
Well, believe me, I was the same way. I was listening. Don would go into him and Sandy, and he still hated the O'Malley family, owners of the Dodgers at the time. But when he went into their holdout, wanting more money, and then, of course, his love for Sandy and everything, you just sit there and listen. It was classic baseball history because they just walked off the team. And the O'Malleys had to go, ooh, I think we may have screwed this up. So
yeah. Well, hey, remind whoever's asking you for help with that concrete, reminder that you've entered another generation, and you might not be out there helping load a bunch of concrete bags. So concrete mix.
Lady, how strong are you, lady? you have to be on the other end of this thing.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon. I appreciate this, and boy, our folks will they really enjoy hearing from you. So thanks for doing this, Randy.
Great, man. I really enjoyed it. Good one.
All right, there he goes, Randy Galloway from Parts Unknown, a Lowe's somewhere out in Parker County. All right, let's get back into it. Let's hear from Luca. We'll do it next.
More Matt Mosley coming up.